Pedro Sula, the capital of fear. There are places on this planet where time seems to stop, not because of beauty or peace, but because of the weight of violence that hangs in the air like smoke. San Pedro Sula, located in the north of Honduras, is one of those places. To a traveller looking at a map, it's just a dot surrounded by tropical forests and mountains. To those who know its story, it's a modern battlefield, not of nations but of young lives, gangs, poverty, and forgotten hopes. Once a promising city, in the mid-20th century San Pedro Sula was thriving. Its location made it a key hub for commerce, agriculture and industry. Factories boomed, exports flowed, and the city's population grew rapidly. But the rapid urban growth wasn't matched by political vision or social investment. Neighborhoods swelled with no infrastructure. The wealth stayed in a few hands, and the rest were left behind. Over time, poverty, inequality, and desperation became fertile ground for something darker. The rise of gang empires. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, MS-13 and Barrio 18, two of the most violent gangs in the Western Hemisphere, had turned San Pedro Sula into a war zone. These weren't just street gangs. They were, and still are, highly organized criminal organizations with command structures, logistics, and political connections. They don't just control neighborhoods. They tax local businesses, recruit children, run extortion networks, and dominate smuggling routes that span all of Central and North America. Some areas of the city are so dangerous that not even police dare to enter. Locals refer to them as zonas rojas, red zones. If you cross the invisible border between gang territories, you might not make it out alive. A city held hostage. Imagine waking up every day in a place where violence is not the exception, but the rule. In San Pedro Sula, this is daily life for many. Families sleep to the sound of gunfire. Mothers worry not just about feeding their children, but about keeping them alive long enough to become adults. Children as young as 10 or 11 are given guns and taught to kill. Many don't go to school, not because they don't want to, but because schools are gang recruitment zones or too dangerous to reach. Extortion is everywhere. If you own a business, you pay war tax. If you refuse, you're killed. No trial, no protection. The invisible walls. San Pedro is a city of walls, not physical ones, but psychological and territorial. Residents are constantly aware of invisible borders. A single street can mark the difference between life and death. If you live in Barrio 18 territory and accidentally walk into MS-13's zone, you might be executed on sight. You don't wear certain colors. You don't make eye contact. You don't speak unless you're sure it's safe. Fear is the only law that applies equally to everyone. When police become powerless. The local police forces are underpaid, under-equipped, and often corrupt. Some work with the gangs, others simply give up. In many parts of the city, gangs are the law. They run their own justice systems. They decide who lives, who dies, and who can breathe safely in their neighborhood. Even government-backed military patrols often fail to bring order. The fear is too deeply rooted, and the gangs too deeply embedded. Yet life goes on. And yet San Pedro Sula is not a ghost town. It's filled with people, brave people, who go on living. They open shops, go to church, raise families, and hope for better days. There are teachers who risk their lives to educate kids out of gang life. There are women's groups, activists and journalists who keep documenting the truth, even though it puts a target on their backs. They live not because it's safe, but because they refuse to surrender. San Pedro Sula isn't just a local tragedy. It's a global warning. It shows what happens when governments abandon their people, when corruption thrives and inequality grows, when weapons are easier to get than clean water, and when fear becomes the currency of control. We often see these places on the news, then forget about them. But they don't disappear. They suffer in silence. San Pedro Sula is a city crying out, not just for help, but for the world to listen. This is not just the story of a city. It's the story of a system that failed, and the people who continue to live in its ruins. San Pedro Sula, the most dangerous city and one of the most human.